is today. Of course, by lunar calendar, by solar calendar, that's the date. We'll hear something about his life at the beginning and the middle and so forth. He was born in Jagannath Puri as the son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur at that time was the chief magistrate in the British system of governance in Puri. And so he had a very important position. And he named his son Bimala with the understanding, so explicitly with the understanding that Bimala Devi is the Parashakti, the spiritual potency of the personality of God, one of the names of, like Radharani. So Bimala Devi. So after her, Bimala Prasad. Datta is the family name. And he lived almost 63 years. This is his departure date, 1937. And one of the biographies about him is entitled Araya Vishnu, because when his father was living as a Vaishnav in Puri, making his Krishna conscious best effort to propagate knowledge of Lord Chaitanya, the knowledge of the message of Lord Chaitanya, of love of God, but the onslaught of the age of Kali was very powerful. And so he offered his prayers to the personality of Godhead, Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, to send a ray of Vishnu to help him spread the Krishna consciousness movement. And sure enough, that's what happened. And one of the indications that that's what happened was when he was born, very unusually, the umbilical cord of the child was wrapped around his shoulder, just like a Brahmin thread. And when the house where Bhaktivinoda Thakur lived was along Grand Road. Some of you have been to Puri, so you know where Grand Road is. Over on this end of Grand Road is the temple. Over on that end of Grand Road is the Gundicha, not Gundicha. It's the temple where the deity is taken. Yeah, Gundicha Marjana, the Gundicha temple. So Jagannath is taken one day of the year off the altar onto the cart, taken in procession, pulled by ropes, 3 carts, all the way down to the far end, where he stays for a week and then goes back to the altar. So on the way, it kind of exceptionally, extraordinarily, the cart stopped right in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. And because the wife of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhagavati Devi, had, privileges, she got on the cart with her small child and placed the small child directly in front of Lord Jagannath as an offering to Lord Jagannath. Very small child. And as she placed him in that position, the garland, one of the garlands around the neck of Lord Jagannath, fell and circled the child. And it was taken that that's a sign that Jagannath is giving his blessings. Bhaktivinoda Thakur Bhakti Siddhanta had the greatest respect for his father. Greatest respect for his father. And he followed. He took inspiration from and followed in his footsteps. And just to give some idea of his personality, there was a point in time when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was giving regular morning Bhagavatam classes in Jagannath Ballabh Gardens. Those of you who've been to Puri, you know where that is. It's off Grand Road to the side, and it's a fantastic place, Jagannath Ballabha Gardens. And because he was such a Vaishnav, many people came. Many people came every morning to hear him speak Srimad Bhagavatam in Jagannath Ballabh Gardens. Now, right now, I'm not remembering the name, but there was a sadhu in Puri who was speaking negative things about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Don't go to hear his class. And speaking like that, this sadhu contracted a very serious disease. The details I don't remember. But the serious disease got worse and worse, and incredible fever. It looked like he was going to expire. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur heard about it. So he went to this sadhu and offered some prayers and said some mantras and offered him some medicine that cured his fever and his illness. And then the sadhu said to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I realized that this happened because I had made an offense against you and you had forgiven me for that offense. Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur knew what he was speaking against him. And he said, the reason I was speaking against you is you're speaking the Bhagavatam, but you're not, don't wear Vaishnav tilak. And you don't have neck beads. And the answer that Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave was, I don't wear tilak and I don't have neck beads because I have not yet found my spiritual master. Because in his time, Prabhupada has introduced, we wear tilak and neck beads immediately. But there's the Pancha Sanskar procedure that those things are 2 of the 5 things that happen at the time of Diksha. And until Diksha, you don't have Urdhvam tilak and you don't have neck beads. At initiation, you're given both and other things in the mantra. The sadhu was very apologetic and they became very close friends after some time because then he could understand. He's an extraordinary personality. Later, just to give some picture of Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur took exception, umbrage is the word, when the Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father's spiritual master, was accepting Bhaktivinoda Thakur, paying obeisances at his feet and rubbing his head and all those nice little exchanges. Right in front of him, Bhakti Siddhanta scolded him. You have no idea how exalted is this personality who is at your feet. You're not qualified to be his spiritual master. He was like, Nrsinga Guru, Bhakti Siddhanta, very strong. All regard for real qualification. Bhakti Siddhanta, when he wanted initiation, he approached Gorkishore Das Babaji 3 times. And each time he said no, because he wasn't accepting disciples. And the 4th time he said yes, because he saw how sincere and qualified and serious was Bhakti Siddhanta. Another nice example of the relationship between Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta, in their adult years. On the occasion of the appearance day of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he published a book called The Vedanta, Its Morphology and Ontology. Now, this has very special personal relevance in my life, and the reason is 1969. 1969. I received the Back to Godhead, my first Krishna conscious literature from Purijan Prabhu. We went to college together, and one day we were having lunch in student union, and he gave me a Back to Godhead magazine. I didn't know what it was, had no idea. There's a nice little anecdotal thing, but that happened in between. I'll say it. I put the magazine together with my books and my clipboard and was carrying it around with me. One fine day, someone saw the magazine and they said, "Oh no, you're not into that, are you?" I said, "What do you mean, into that, are you?" I said, "Well, you don't want to be into that." So I got interested, so I read the magazine. And when I read the magazine, the feature article of the Back to God magazine at that time was this. It was this article or part of this little booklet. And so when I started to read it, I had to have a dictionary because I couldn't even understand the title. 3 words in the title I had to look up. And then the rest, what you do in college, you take notes and put stuff in the margin and underline things. And 3 hours later, I had finished that Back to Godhead magazine article. And at the end, 2 things. I can't say I understood it. And the second thing is, I found that my consciousness was in another place that I'd never experienced before. And from that day until today, so this is a very special day for me, 150th anniversary of Bhakti Siddhanta's appearance. Very special personality in my personal life. In honor of Bhakti Siddhanta, some of the evening classes, what I plan to do, Krishna permitting, is to go through Bhakti Siddhanta's commentary on Sri Brahma Samhita. Very high language, and I'll try to make it simple, but it's Srimad Bhagavatam in a skinny book. It's very packed. It's an amazing book. An amazing book. So, in honor of Bhakti Siddhanta and his 150th appearance day, anniversary, I plan to do that in the other evening classes. These, a few, not the whole thing. This book by Bhakti Siddhanta, the Vedanta, its morphology and ontology, was drawn from an English lecture Bhakti Vinod Thakur gave some years before that at Dinajpur, 1869. Now, what people do today is what people did at that time also. They would, what happened? When they gave a public lecture, when you give a paper in academia, you also, you speak on it, you give a presentation, a written presentation. So that written presentation was called The Bhagavat, Its Philosophy, Its Ethics, and Its Theology. He gave a lecture. It was in English, and he it was published in a written form as well as the lecture that he gave. At this particular time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was around 36 years old when he gave this public lecture. And then Bhakti Siddhanta followed him, printing this book. And in 1969, it's not showing up, that's when the Hare Krishna movement printed the same article. So I'm indebted to all 3. Oh, there it says, just below his name, 1969. Notice the center. What's at the center? At the center is the logo of the Gaudiya Math. And here's a close-up of the logo of the Gaudiya Math. And it's in Bengali. In case you don't read Bengali, here it is in English. It's the Nama is at the center. And surrounding the center are Yasha, Shri, and Gyan, Vairagya, Aishvarya, Virya. Those aren't exactly the opulences of Bhagavan, but they're features that come from these two divisions. At the top, there's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At the bottom is Guru Gaudiya with Vaishnav Tilak. And looking at the image on our right, that's the Aishvarya worship. There's Lakshmi Narayan, there's a bell, there's incense, Archana. Pancharatra is the procedures to be followed by Vaishnavas in worship of deity. So deity worship in the mood of Lakshmi Nrsimha, Lakshmi Narayan on the right side. And on the left side is Radha and Krishna under a tree, or Raga Marg. So Vidhi Marg combined with Raga Marg. That is to say, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's at the top, gave both. And we're supposed to receive both. And you start with the Vidhi, but it's meant to lead to Raga. What's Raga? Raga means spontaneous devotional service. Raga Bhakti. So regulated or Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti leads to Raga Sadhana Bhakti. It can't, doesn't have to. You can stay with Vidhi and that's fine. And that which stimulates the Raga, at the top is Bhagavatam, at the bottom is Kirtan. Compliments to our Kirtaniers. You're on the Raga Marg path. Congratulations, kids. And notice in that same wedge that has the mridanga, there's something else. What's that something else? The printing press. Now, a printing press at that time was the offset printing press procedure. It worked a little differently, but it did, accomplish a printed page. And the printed pages were bound and became books. And so book distribution was a very significant part of, so much a significant part of Bhakti Siddhanta's practice of spreading Krishna consciousness. What kind of car? Okay. I hope nobody else did the same thing. Can you see back there? Do you want to see? Come on in so you can see, because we're talking about the logo that's on the screen. That's a good one. Do we not, now that we stopped, everyone move up a little bit, because sometimes people come a little late. Ladies, please make yourself uncomfortable for a moment. Those of you that are against the wall, it's fine. You can stay against the wall. Those are the coveted spot. But everyone else come forward, because some people come a little bit late. And it's okay. Thank you very much. Sorry for the second disruption. So, printing press, right in his logo. And we're going to see a nice painting of Bhakti Siddhanta instructing Srila Prabhupada. If you ever get money, print books. We'll hear that later. But it was a very important part of Gaudiya Math, and that's the logo of Gaudiya Math, which was on the cover of that book, the Bhagavad, its morphology and ontology. When he was a young boy, just 3 years old, picture a little child, 3 years old, he ate a mango. And his father asked him, "Did you eat that mango? It wasn't offered to the deity. You ate a mango that wasn't offered to the deity?" And Bhakti Siddhanta, 3-year-old boy, said, "Yes, I did. I'm an offender." No, mangoes in mango season in Bengal are really fantastic. But he ate it. So he said, "I'm an offender. I'll not eat mango for the rest of my life." And he maintained that vow, 3-year-old boy's vow. Later, when offered, people didn't know, don't offer him a mango because he won't accept it. They offered him a mango. In mango season, he would say, "No, I'm an offender." That's his character. When he was 7 years old, his father gave him this Kurma deity. And when he was 7 years old, he not only knew some choice Bhagavad Gita slokas, but he knew the entire Bhagavad Gita from memory. He had this didactic memory. Some people have good memories and some of the rest of us don't. He had the good memory kind. He was a Vaishnava from the get-go, from the day he was born, and now 3 years old, 7 years old. At the age of 13, his father gave him this deity, a Nrsinga deity. And he gave him japa beads at 13. And he gave him Mahamantra. Now, it doesn't say he initiated him in Mahamantra, but he gave him beads for chanting. And his life was in a accelerated trajectory from young stage. During his teenage life, he became the most renowned astrologer in all of India. He made commentary on Surya Siddhanta, and he was like the authority in all of India. There's lots of astrologers in India, but he had that acclaim because he was super excellent. But he gave it up. He gave it up because it's on the material platform, and he lost interest. And along with losing interest, he didn't complete his formal education. The reason he didn't complete his formal education is there's a few people in the room from India. And you know what happens when you complete your formal education? You get a job. And you know what to do after you get a job? Get married. He took a detour. He didn't complete his education. He didn't get a job. He didn't get married. But he became the librarian by choice from the king of Tripura, who was a Vaishnav. And that's what he did instead of, the path of... Because at that time there weren't temples. He didn't have his own temples yet, and there weren't other temples that he wanted to be part of, and so that's what he did. No, it's not what he did full time, but that was, you can say, his occupation, his designation. Going forward in time, he was visiting his father, who was now in a retired phase from his chief magistrate in Puri, and he was living more in a bhajan solitude position, very near to the samadhi of Haridas Thakura. So I don't know if does anybody in the room need an introduction to who is Haridas Thakura? Is any new people that would like me to explain? Okay. Haridas Thakura was born in a Muslim family in now Bangladesh, but then it was something else. And from childhood, he had affinity for Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Many, many, many things happened. Fast forward, he became designated as the Namacharya. He chanted 3 times 64 rounds every day. Now, many devotees chant 16 rounds a day. And some devotees, on special occasions, some devotees every day, chant 64 rounds. He chanted 3 times 64 rounds every day. He was immersed. every day for his life. And when Haridas Thakur became too old, Chaitanya, he was living in Puri to be with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked that, Haridas, you're so old, you're a perfected soul, you don't need to do this chanting. And he said, no, I made a vow. I have to complete my chanting. Voluntarily, Haridas, like grandfather Bhishma, he left his body, seeing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like grandfather Bhishma left, seeing Krishna before him. He went to Krishna. Haridas Thakur, same. He left his body, eyes wide open, chanting the holy name, rousing kirtan in the presence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who picked up his dead body, carried his dead body to the sea, bathed his dead body, did the formal rituals, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a Brahmana and knew the rituals, and how to perform the ceremony for an exalted holy man, and placed him into the ground with his hands. He dug the hole, and in the hole with salt and everything. And his samadhi, Haridas Thakur's samadhi, was by the side of the sea. And at this time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was also living very proximate to the samadhi of Haridas Thakur. There was a local Babaji named Radharaman Das Babaji. This is just taken out of the internet. It's not the fellow. But he was a celebrity in Jagannath Puri at the time. People had really high regard for him. And he made his bhajan place right next to the samadhi of Haridas Thakur, like borrowing this credential in chanting of the holy name. And Bhakti Siddhanta was once visiting his father in Puri, and he came to know of this Radharaman Charana Das Babaji and confronted him intensely. I mean, Bhakti Siddhanta wasn't shy. He said two things. The mantra that you're chanting is not an authorized mantra. You had popularized a made-up mantra. And there's a term, a technical term, rasa bhasa. There's a conflict of rasa within the term, within the mantra. I won't repeat the mantra. It's rasa bhasa. But it was a celebrated mantra. Instead of chanting Hare Krishna, as Lord Chaitanya did, as Haridas Thakur, residing right next to Haridas Thakur, chanting the Rasa Bhasa mantra. And the second thing is, he was teaching Saki Beki, which means he was training his chief disciple to become a gopi, or Saki. So he dressed his disciple as a gopi. He, the male disciple, was dressed as a gopi to get trained up to become a gopi. And Bhakti Siddhanta scolded him severely. This is not the process given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's, it's fabrication, and you should stop it. But he's like this celebrity. And this young Bhakti Siddhanta, challenging this elderly, reputed Babaji, made a turmoil. India, turmoil. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur made a suggestion. I think it's a good idea if you leave Puri, because it's made things too much turbulent. Not that what you said was wrong, but it's created turbulence. Why don't you go to Mayapur and just chant the holy name? Take a vow to chant the holy name many, many times. So he took a vow. Bhakti Siddhanta, when he was just 31 years old, so think of somebody who was in their prime, 31 years old, He went to Navadvip. He went to the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that his father had established, which was was also a challenge to the established idea at that time that the birthplace was in another place. But anyway, without all that history, he went to the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called Yog Pith, and he made a vow that every day he would chant the same number of rounds that Haridas Thakur chanted, which is 3 times 64 rounds a day. Now, some of you may have been to a japa retreat, or in some occasion, maybe on Krishna Janmashtami or something. Some of you have chanted 64 rounds. It takes a lot of time each day. 3 times 64. So he did that for 9 years. That's 1 billion names. And, depending upon how fast you chant, if you chant 5-minute rounds, I can't do that. If you chant 5-minute rounds, it's going to take you 16 hours a day. And he did that for 9 years, like Superman. After some time, he shifted his location from the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the place where Chandrasekhar Acharya, who was a very elevated Vaishnava during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's times, where he resided, which is just down the road. Now it's called Bhakti Siddhanta Road, from the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he just had a grass hut. Now, what's pictured here is what's there today. What's there today was not what was there then. It's now marble and nice and everything. And inside, you see his murti, and there's the murti. And after he completed this vrata, he received an instruction from his Diksha Guru. His Diksha Guru was Jagannath Das Babaji, similar to other Babajis at the time. Well, so similar but different. Babaji meaning he was just absorbed in bhajan. However, many people came to him because he was realized in transcendental knowledge. And they came to him for teachings. So he gave teachings, along with chanting so many rounds every day. Eventually, we mentioned already, Gorkishore Das Babaji gave him Diksha. Then Gorkishore Das Babaji gave him an instruction that you should take the message of Lord Chaitanya and preach it widely. So he took the instruction to heart. It is at this time that he established the first of what later became 64 temples. He formed the organization. You saw the logo of it, Gaudiya Math. The headquarters became Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, and he wanted to have a deity for Chaitanya Gaudiya Math temple. There's the deity. Gandharvika was the name he gave to the Radharani deity, and Giridhari. Gandharvika, Giridhari. And by his side, by Giridhari's side, is Mahaprabhu. That's the altar. If you go there today, that's the deities you'll see. And there's 2 stories. They're nice, so I'm going to tell both of them. One is a story that Janadivas tells about how the deities came to him. In case you don't know, Janadivas is the head pujari who has been in Sridham Mayapur serving Radha Madhava for who knows, like 4 decades. He's Australian. He has a twin brother. And they've been together there serving as brahmacharis, very simple, pure devotees, for years and years and years. So Janadivas tells this story that's slightly different than the next one. When the devotees founded the Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, Bhakti Siddhanta went with some devotees to Jaipur to purchase deities. When they went to the shop to see what deities were being sold, the seller told them, namely Bhakti Siddhanta, "Over there are your deities standing in the corner." Bhakti Siddhanta, "How do you know that they're my deities?" Shop owner, "Last night I had a dream. These deities came to me in a dream and said, 'Tomorrow a Mahaparusha will come here and will want to buy deities from you. We want to serve. We want him to serve us. So please take them. I want to give them to you." Shop owners. So he gave them these names. The same day that he accepted sannyas to fulfill the order of Gorkishore Das Babaji to preach. And that was a very unique way that he accepted sannyas from Gorkishore Das Babaji. He accepted sannyas from Gorkishore Das Babaji from a picture. And the mantras came from a book, but it's the order of his spiritual master. Gorkishore Das Babaji wasn't a sannyasi, but one who isn't a sannyasi can give sannyas mantras because there's a procedure. There's another version that's similar, but at the Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, that's the name of this headquarters place for Bhakti Siddhanta's preaching. From 1905 to 1917, almost 12 years, Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur engaged in intensive chanting of the holy name daily. I beg your pardon? What? Okay, so I'll connect it again. Thank you. I left my reading glasses, so I just have to hold my computer close to my... Magic's going to happen. It's going to show up again. Look at that. It showed up again. The next year, for the purpose of establishing the Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur went with some devotees to Jaipur to bring deities from there. They went to several shops to see what deities were available. When Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur expressed his attraction for a particular set of Radha Krishna deities, the shopkeeper said that these deities had been sold already, so he could not take them. Bhakti Siddhanta left and returned to his room. That evening, Bhakti Siddhanta had a dream of the same deities, instructing him that he needs to return to the same shopkeeper and install the deity in Mayapur. When he told the shopkeeper about the dream, the shopkeeper accepted and said he could take the deity. So slightly different, but the deity wanted to be worshipped by him. That's the main point. So there's the deity and his sannyas initiation, and the installing of the deity gives the date. Here we see Bhakti Siddhanta with a beard. Why a beard? Because he observed Chaturmasya very severely every year. Chaturmasya, 4 months of the rainy season, he kept certain vows. 1, no shaving the head, no shaving of one's face. 2, eating only once a day, khichdi without salt. Try it. Try one meal, khichdi without salt. Not very palatable. 3, he didn't eat with his hands. He leaned over and ate only with his mouth like a horse. And I guess his beard got messed up from the khichdi on his beard. But when you lean over, what happens to your stomach? The capacity diminishes. And so the rule was hands behind his back, eating like a horse until he finished eating. And when he sat up, that was it. One meal a day for 4 months, except the codices, of course. And then he would shave, go back to his. So very strong control of senses, control of his mind, extremely intelligent, didactic memory, totally dedicated to serving his spiritual master, his spiritual master's spiritual master, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father, and serving the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very, very dedicated. One of the ways, along with printing books, is he wrote many articles. And he wrote many letters, and there's collection of letters, abundant book collections of letters, giving very powerful instructions to devotees. This is a photograph of Bhakti Siddhanta in Vrindavan. Now, in sannyasis, a rule during his time was sannyasis don't wear sewn cloth. Sannyasis don't ride in conveyances, they only walk. So here he is, not only a sewn cloth, but a nice coat, and not only in a conveyance, but in a car, and not only in a car, but a convertible. And he would he would purposely ride through the streets of Vrindavan and wave to people. Because his message was Yukta Vairagya. In impersonalist, it's Jnana Vairagya. And for him, or for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for Rupa Goswami, it's Yukta Vairagya. That is, Yukta, engage in bhakti with detachment from the material because of attachment to the spiritual, or attachment to Krishna. And everything can be used, this nice camera, then this big screen, and sometimes the computer connection works and sometimes it doesn't. But we can use technology. Just this morning, I was listening to Prabhupada having an interview, his recording, 1975, Dr. Gerson, who is a professor in Los Angeles, saying, I'm completely amazed, because he was an author, a professor and an author. And he said, I've looked at how you do your book publication, and that technology is the top of the line. And Prabhupada was chuckling. You're speaking all these things about detachment, but look what they're doing with this publishing branch of the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. It's beyond, because I do a lot with publishing. I know what publishers do, and you're at the top of the line, even what they don't have. So, and then Prabhupada explained Yukta Vairagya. Now here's Bhakti Siddhanta challenging in Vrindavan, riding around a convertible. And it's a no-no, but he was making a point. And he lived his life that way, not challenging people all the time, but making a point. Everything belongs to Krishna, should be used in his service. Here's Bhakti Siddhanta, of course, with his head shaved, and he always had this very intense look because he was an intense person. Sometimes he would dress like this. This is a group photograph. He is wearing a turban, fancy garland, and he's with an assembly of his Vaishnava followers, giving teachings. We'll get into this in just a moment. Here's a formal portrait photography session of Bhakti Siddhanta that later became a painting. This is a photograph of the place where Bhakti Siddhanta was first met by Srila Prabhupada. When Prabhupada first met Bhakti Siddhanta, He was in college. He was married. He had a child. And his father, Gaur Mohan De, Prabhupada's father, was a Vaishnav. And Prabhupada's father had the practice of inviting sadhus to come to their home again and again and again and again and again, and ask the sadhu the same thing. Please bless my son that he becomes a devotee of Radharani. That was his father's aspiration. And from Prabhupada's perspective, he would have people that weren't so sadhu-like, but he thought his father, my father's not so discriminating. Anybody that has saffron, he has them come and ask the same question, same blessing. So when his friend, college friend, said, come meet a sadhu, he said, no, I've met so many sadhus, thank you. And his friend said, no, he's different, so please come. So 104 years ago, that's not right, yes, 102 years ago, they met on a rooftop, and there's a photograph of the rooftop. Now, I'm sure it didn't look like it looks like here. This is a memorial place where Bhakti Siddhanta met Prabhupada. So here's a painting of their meeting. And again, there's slightly different versions, but sometimes it's when they first came and sat before him while paying obeisances, Bhakti Siddhanta started speaking directly to Prabhupada. Now I just heard a recording. Prabhupada said, in the course of my life, I met Bhakti Siddhanta maybe 10 times. Think about it. And the whole life dedicated because he understood. So at this time, Gandhi movement was very popular. Prabhupada was a leader in the Gandhi movement. So when Bhakti Siddhanta made this request, you're English speaking, you please take up the mission of taking the message of Lord Chaitanya to the English-speaking parts of the world. Bhakti Siddhanta also spoke English, but he wanted some followers to do this service. And Prabhupada disagreed, saying, we're under British subjugation. Who in the English-speaking parts of the world are going to take us seriously if we're under British subjugation? So when we become free from British subjugation, then this message can be spread. And Bhakti Siddhanta gave a 20-minute answer, saying spreading Lord Chaitanya's message isn't depending upon circumstance. It's a transcendental message that has a transcendental potency, and we don't have to wait. And went on and on and on. And Prabhupada didn't do it immediately because he's a householder with education and so forth. But the message entered his heart. Here's one of his nice sayings out of thousands of them. All those conditioned souls who consider apparent impediments to their happiness are harmful, or the cruelty of the Supreme Lord. See only the first move in the chess game. They're unable to foresee what lies beyond the fourth and the fifth move. Don't wait. Now. Another celebrated event, Bhakti Siddhanta traveled as a sannyasi. One of the places he traveled to was in Dhaka. And he accepted a challenge. He said, can you speak on only one verse for a whole month? So he agreed. Now, there weren't recordings of his speaking, but it is said that he never repeated his first verse of the Bhagavatam. For 30 days, spoke on one verse only, without repeating himself. Vast scholar. That's January 1933. In March of 1933, Professor Sanyal, who was like his alter ego, or he was a a professor in a university in Orissa. And he was given the assignment to write a book that, that was for the purpose of Bhakti Siddhanta's mission of taking the message of Lord Chaitanya to the English-speaking parts of the world. There were two sannyasis that were sponsored by the Gaudiya Math to go to England and try to establish the Chaitanya Math or Gaudiya Math in England. They were to take this book with them because he wanted. No, it's important because Prabhupada followed exactly what his spiritual master did. When he came to the West, he wanted to bring the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. If you think about it, or take a look at your first canto Srimad Bhagavatam in your home, you'll find there's, in the introduction, there's a whole description of the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And then the teachings of Lord Chaitanya are the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. The teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam are the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It's a one-to-one correlation. The way that Lord Chaitanya expressed it, a little differently, but it's the same message. So off they went in May of 1933, and they established a little something. It didn't last long. They went to Germany, a little something, didn't last long. They came back, reported to Bhakti Siddhanta. It was not successful, although they tried. He was pleased that they had tried, but he wanted this to happen. He gave the same instruction to Srila Prabhupada, as you know. But when you become very powerful, you can count on, and qualified, you can count on having opposition. And one of the points of opposition, an example of his opposition that he met, was in Navadvip. Now, Navadvip is across the river of the Ganges. Have you been there? No? Someday, right? Okay. So, the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, according to the biographies of his time, the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is on the eastern side of the river Ganges. What happened after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed is the course of the Ganges shifted. And that became underwater. Some time passed. The city of Navadvip was recognized by some. That was the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's on the western side of the Ganges. But somehow people didn't know the history, and they just accepted it. So it became like an accepted fact. Navadvip, the city of Navadvip, is the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur confirmed otherwise without a lot of the history. And he wanted Bhakti Siddhanta to build the formal temple on the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he did it at his father's request. So he was like cutting into the finance of the people whose income was dependent upon, no, it's over there. And he's saying, no, it's over there. What does that mean? He was risking his life. Because in Bengal, you don't do that. You get chopped. So what happened was, he was having Naga Sankirtan, like we do sometimes, and he was having it in Navadvip. And on a regular basis, they would go from Mayapur to Navadvip and have Sankirtan, because there's a city. They have Kirtan in the city. Some of the money invested people, called Brahmins, wanted to kill him because their livelihood was at stake. So they went to the police and offered a bribe. You look the other way, we're going to kill him. And the police said, well, you know that we accept bribes, but he's a sadhu, so we can't accept this bribe. And somehow that murder plot leaked. But Bhakti Siddhanta was fearless. They went to downtown Navadvip, as you see in this painting. This is like a formal photograph, where they were doing Naga Sankirtan in Navadvip. And when the hired Gundas came out with their weapons to kill Bhakti Siddhanta, it was a big bunch of confusion. So there was one tall, thin grahasta who pulled Bhakti Siddhanta to the side and said, let's change clothes. I'll wear your sannyas dhoti, you wear my grahasta dhoti, and they won't know the difference because we have the same stature, because they really don't know you. So that's what they did, and he survived. Now the grahasta also survived, and later that grahasta became a sannyasi in Mathura, and he's the one that gave Srila Prabhupada his sannyas diksha. Keshava Maharaj was then a grahasta. So Bhakti Siddhanta escaped, went back across the river, went back to his headquarters, and the police caught the Gundas. They put them in jail, and they went to Bhakti Siddhanta and said, do you want to press charges? And he said, no, I don't want to press charges. The publicity that the newspapers gave, the chanting of Hare Krishna and Lord Chaitanya, and we could never have gotten all of that publicity otherwise. So yeah, send them a thanks. It was kind even to attempted murderers. I don't know if I would do the same thing, but that's what he did. And part of his teachings, while there's strong emphasis on chanting of the holy name, look what he did for 12 years. 64 rounds times 3 every day for 12 years. He explained that chanting of the holy name is not alone, is not stand-alone. It's with Harikatha. Here's a little text that says it. Harikatha is the Swarup Shakti of Harinam. Just as Krishna is properly worshipped not alone, but with his Swarup Shakti, Shri Radha, recitation of Harinam is incomplete and improper unless accompanied by hearing Harikatha. Just like Srimad Bhagavatam. It's part of the Vedas, and the Vedas is feminine. So the Harikatha is what goes along well with the holy name. Radha Krishna, not alone. Nice. And he referred to this nice description in Chaitanya Bhagavat. He wrote, along with Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's another biography by the Vyasadeva incarnation in Gaura Leela named Vrindavan Das Thakur wrote Chaitanya Bhagavat, and this is Bhakti Siddhanta wrote this commentary. Excuse me, though this isn't commentary, this is the verse. The characteristics of Prahlad are described in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and the characteristics of Dhruva are described in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sri Gadadhar Pandit Goswami, pictured here, he's on the white giving the Bhagavatam class, was the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Gaurasundar was the listener. He, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, attentively heard topics of Prahlad and Dhruva's cultivation of devotional service from the mouth of Gadadhar hundreds of times. So along with propagating Sankirtan, propagating by his own example the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. That tells us what we should do, right? This is a photograph, a formal photograph of Srila Prabhupada with the then governor of Bengal. His name was John Anderson, with his assistant by his side. And there's Bhakti Siddhanta sitting in a formal way at a formal table, and they all get garlands and having discussions on, because Calcutta was the capital of the British Empire. in India. It wasn't Delhi, it was Calcutta. And here's that same photograph. Here's a close-up of Bhakti Siddhanta. Nice smile. Here's the deities of Gandharvaka Giridhari. Those of you that visit, we're almost done. Those of you that visit his temple, Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, his headquarters, there's a house over to the side, and it was a 2-story house, and it said that Bhakti Siddhanta every morning for a certain period of time would pace up and down and go over arguments and counter arguments, the Purva Paksha, and answering people that would criticize or make, like, a stallion in the getting ready for the race. Powerful person. And one of the concerns that he had was uniting the 4 sampradayas. I had a discussion with this yesterday at the university. Yesterday. Washu. So there's, according to Padma Purana, there are 4 lines of disciplic succession that come from the personality of Godhead, Krishna or Narayan, etc. And he wanted to bring unity within the 4 sampradayas. Now, how do you get unity when there's diversity? You have to have a common center. So one of the ways that he did was the common center is the same Supreme Lord. But then one of the things he did also was he took the teachings of the 4 sampradayas. He wrote a book on this topic. The first time I went to Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, outside the Gandharvaka Giridhari temple, not a big temple hall, it's just a temple, and then there's on 4 corners, there were the deities or murtis of each of the 4 sampradaya acharyas. And then again they changed it, but it's still there because it was established by him. And he wanted that people from these 4 sampradayas understand there's a common center for all, and, important, that Bhakti Siddhanta, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted teachings, 2 teachings from each of the 4 sampradayas. So 8 teachings, 2 times 4. And here they are, just so you have a quick idea. Complete defeat of Mayavad philosophy, Madhvacharya. Service to the deity of Krishna, accepting the deity as an eternal spiritual being. Would it be Krishna? And Ramanujacharya, the concept of bhakti unpolluted by karma and gyan, central to Rupa Goswami, which is Lord Chaitanya's teachings. And Vaishnava Seva, very important in Ramanujacharya's teachings, very important to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. Vishnu Swami, exclusive dependence on Krishna and the path of raga bhakti. Vishnu Swami, like Vallabhacharya. And Nimbarkacharya, the necessity of taking shelter of Radha, the high esteem for the gopi, love for Krishna. So there's a lot of similarity, obviously, Nimbarkacharya and Lord Chaitanya. So I'll say it again, Bhakti Siddhanta wanted to beat the drum and blare the trumpet and say Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings unite all 4 sampradayas. So the other 4 sampradayas can have regard for Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's teaching, because he accepts and unites, and the center is the same center. Nice. Strong. He was strong. Here's a painting. You perhaps have seen it before. This is Bhakti Siddhanta. One of the things he did every year was yatras to Vrindavan or other holy places. This is a particular occasion where Prabhupada was with him, holding the hand of his young son. And they were walking around Radhakund, and Prabhupada, Bhakti Siddhanta explained, recently we have acquired a gift. Someone has given a donation of a big marble temple, Bagh Bazar. And immediately my leading disciples are starting to argue who will get which room. Better to sell the marble and print books. Then he instructed him, if you ever get money, print books. And it went in. So he got money. Even when he didn't have money, he was printing books. Because he would get the money because he wanted to print the books. Book publication, just like you saw in this logo. From the very beginning, the logo had the printing press. And right up to the end, it's, he wanted to propagate. The saying was, Mridanga can be heard for a block or two, or maybe three. And printing press can be heard around the world. Brihat Mridanga, he called it, printing press. So it was very, very important for him. And Prabhupada captured it, and Prabhupada did the same. For some time he lived at Radhakund, and here's the Pushpa Samadhis, plural, of himself and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And during the time that he was there, he had this very interesting looking chair, and he spent time at Radhakund, chanting, worshipping Radha Krishna. And a little cot, not a fancy place of residence, his walking stick, and his cane. He established a deity of Radha Kunja Bihari, and this map shows where it is in relation to Radhakund, in case you want to go see it sometime. And here's the deities. Radha Kunja Bihari. Here's a close-up of the deities. Bells and whistles. Last slide for this evening. God is the shelter of all. He sends many obstacles and inconveniences to those who wish for shelter under him in order to test their ardor and steadiness. So next time you get a test, you know what that is. Krishna's testing you to see what's your strength and ardor. It's very similar to Hanuman's crossing the sea, the demigods they wanted to see. When he gets to Lanka, he's going to meet some challenges. Let's see what his competence is. And so they made a request that the goddess of the Nagas would come before him as a big mountain and make an obstacle. No, that's a different one. Anyway, he met the challenge. Simhika. There we go. So, the 150th appearance of Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, and I'm very happy to be with all of you here in St. Louis. Could have been a lot of other places, but here we are, by design, honoring Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur and his gift to the world, to Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada to all of us and future generations. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur ki jai. I thought he was going to be a monkey, and now he wants to be a servant. Giggle, giggle. Any comments or questions? Yes? Go quickly. Speak. Don't wait.
We learned how Gorkishodas Babaji, he was a Babaji, obviously.
He was a Babaji, definitely.
Yeah. And Bhakti Siddhanta, who was his disciple, he received the instruction from him to actually spread the holy name of the Harinam Sankirtan movement.
Yes, he did.
And what inspired him to actually do it in a little bit more formal and disciplined way? Because Gorkishodas Babaji was not necessarily that type of person. So
He was a Babaji. He didn't do it in a formal. He did it informal. But Bhakti Siddhanta was, they have a personality. You have a personality. I have a personality.
So.
And so, according to our nature, we do what we do. And Bhakti Siddhanta was empowered. He was a ray of Vishnu to do what he did. So he had created structure and systems and everything, deity worship and training of devotees, because you get people, that's one thing, and then to train people, that's another thing. So he was an acharya. And Gorkisho was a Babaji. They had different gifts and different ways of giving Krishna to others. So they did what they did, according to their personality and how they're empowered. Can you see the screen way back there on the... Okay, behind you. There's a... Okay. She's with us.
And I have one more question.
One more.
Unless anybody else wants to ask.
Well, let's see if somebody else. Anyone else want to ask? And if not, he's got the microphone. Okay, Chakri.
I was wondering how it was mentioned, how Bhakti Siddhanta was mentioning sell the marble. But then sometimes, I don't know if it's contradictory, sometimes he would mention we want to have temples in the cities, the big cities, not out in the countries to preach. So how?
Well, it was a... I've not seen the place, but my understanding of the place, it was very opulent. And the opulence was attracting his followers more than it was attracting the people who were the public. It's still there. My understanding is it's still there. But he didn't want an opulent building. City is one thing, and an opulent building is another thing. He wanted the mood of expanding the preaching. So being in the city has that purpose. Otherwise, you don't need to be in the city. You have something. You're okay. You're just stretching. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, up front.
Hare Krishna again. So, you described how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu incorporated two things from each sampradaya in order to unite them. So is it safe to say that we're followers of all these four sampradayas?
No, we're followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Okay.
It's not that that Lord Chaitanya did some cherry picking, 2 from this tree, 2 from that tree. It's Bhakti Siddhanta's generosity to indicate that yes, in fact, these 2 points from each of these 4 sampradayas were very important to Lord Chaitanya. It was an effort to unite, and we're followers of the one who is the effort to unite. That's how we should see our affiliation and our heart. Right next to you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I wanted to get a clarification.
We can say we're in harmony with each of them, but not we're with each of them. Go ahead.
I wanted to get a clarification. The deities of Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Maharaj is the Gandharvika Giridhari deities. Yeah. They are in Navadvip?
No.
No.
They're in just down the street from the ISKCON temple. So down the street means the road that to get to Sridham Mayapur, our ISKCON Sridham Mayapur, you pass by Chaitanya Gaudiya Math.
Okay.
It's on the same road down the street. It's in Mayapur.
I'm asking this because I remember when we were in the Puri Yatra, there was a building right next to where our Yatra place was, where the classes were happening. And there was also a similar establishment with, I don't know, maybe a replica of Gandharvika Giridhari, or I don't know, but like what you said, the four corners were the four sampradayas.
That was Bhakti Siddhanta's gift.
Okay.
It was a platform that he stood on and taught, and so his followers followed. It's Gaudiya Math Temple
That's
following
okay.
Bhakti Siddhanta.
Okay.
And they have a place in Puri, and that's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, can you please explain the one of the slides said Harikatha is a Swarup Shakti of Harinam, or the other way around? Harinam.
No, you got it right. You got it. You know, of the holy name. The name is Shakti Man, and the Shakti of Shaktiman is Harikatha. Shakti is worshipped. Shaktiman is worshipped with Shakti, not alone. So we don't have Kirtan alone. We have Kirtan with Harikatha. Radha Krishna, or Lakshmi Narayan, or Sitaram, but not alone.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Is it clear?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Okay.
And I have a comment.
Okay.
So whenever we hear Bhakti Siddhanta's life, and it's a life of inspiration so
Yes.
much. But whenever I try to read his commentary on Brahma Samhita, it's very difficult,
Yes, I know.
unable to relate.
Yes.
I can hardly go through a few pages.
Okay. Well, I understand what you just said, and therefore, Krishna permitting, I have taken on a project. It's now about 250 pages long, of making a readable presentation of explaining the verses of Brahma Samhita in a book form, and then giving lectures on the book. You know, it's a standard procedure. And, you know, as you heard, I said at the beginning, even before I knew what the Hare Krishna movement was, before I knew who Prabhupada was, before I knew devotees, before I knew anything, I had this high regard for Bhakti Siddhanta, just from reading this mystical article and what it did to me. I was used to reading technical things, and it wasn't impressive because he had big vocabulary, and I was going, wow, he's got a big vocabulary. The consciousness was transmitted through that little article, and a very elevated consciousness. So that's what happens when you have that kind of association. So I want to do like that, the broadcaster of what he wrote, and then other acharyas and what they've written, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got a copy of Brahma Samhita in a temple in South India. He had a copy made, he made copies, he distributed his copies to others, and it became like an accepted text, authoritative text that Lord Chaitanya endorses. So people took interest. Jiva Goswami wrote the first commentary. Bhakti Thakur wrote a commentary based upon his commentary. Bhakti Siddhanta made a commentary based upon both of them, of course, in their own inimitable style and flavor. So I'm attempting to do something similar, but in language that it's accessible. Oh, let's see how it comes out. It's slow going because I've got other things I do besides that. Ever try to write a book? Anyone else? Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So Maharaj, I was thinking about the last point, the last message, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur that you put there on the slide.
Okay.
That one who wants to take shelter of Krishna, Krishna gives them inconveniences.
Not always.
So I was just thinking that as Krishna also gives the strength to overcome the inconvenience.
Oh, yeah.
Is that also always true?
Oh, yeah, always. Krishna never puts one in a situation that the strength to overcome a conflict or a difficulty in that situation, it's not available. He leaves you stranded. It's not like that. It may require, like with the Pandavas, for example, intensifying the shelter-taking mood, which is a wonderful gift. And then Krishna comes. On the way over here, the devotee that drove us has these things dangling from the rear view mirror, and I was asking, what are they? And he said they're from Vrindavan. The deity of Lord Nrsingadev in Vrindavan has rescued them so many times, very powerful deity. I didn't ask any details, like, you want to tell me this history, that history? But difficulty may come in taking shelter of the Lord who can create the difficulty and help you overcome that difficulty is always there. Always there in the life of his devotee, the Lord's devotee. Is that all right? Behind. Keep going in the back.
Thank you, Maharaj, for coming and sharing this lecture with us. So, my question is about the chess move.
Which one?
Chess move, the first move. You had a slide where saying Krishna does first move and we get kind of agitated, not knowing what is fourth and fifth move.
Okay.
So how to...
Not exactly what he said, but go ahead.
I mean, maybe I'm wrongly paraphrasing it, but...
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
When we are faced with challenges, we're only thinking knee-jerk. Like, I got to respond to this. But we're not thinking ahead and thinking ahead and thinking ahead. So, like, life has a destination. And if we just get caught up in the temporary and therefore forget the long term, we're not thinking necessarily long term. Anyway, an intelligent person can think, they can act short term, but think long term at the same time. So now, what's your question?
My question is how to develop that mood of our patience to wait. What are the practical thought process on should have?
Utsahan nischayat daryat, Rupa Goswami's teaching, right? You know the meaning? Nectar of instruction, Upadeshamrita. Enthusiasm, patience. Wait a minute. Go, stop. It's not go, stop. It's maintain enthusiasm and be patient for the outcome. For daryat, you have confidence or conviction, firm that Krishna is there and Krishna is going to help you. So that's how it works when it's working properly. The daryat, then one's mind can be steady. Dhira, same Sanskrit root. Fixed in determination. Enthusiastic, patient. Is that okay?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Your daughter's having a great time. She's absorbed in that balloon, like, what would she do without her balloon? Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Thakur Prabhupada ki. Gaur Premanandi.
Everybody for coming.